All right. Welcome back to All Cars, my friends. It is time for another reaction video. This week I have chosen the 2002 Acura RSX. This is an interesting car. I really like it with some giant caveats around it. And so I think it's going to be a lot to talk about. So as always, make yourself comfortable in that comfy chair, grab yourself a beverage of choice. We've got some fully caffeinated caffeine today, and let's take a little trip down memory lane, just a brief 22 years ago, and take a look at the RSX.
Motorweek is made possible by Lucas Oil, TireRack.com, and RockAuto.com.
The dream of every musician is to have a big hit, an enduring tune that leaves its mark for a generation or more. Well, the same goes for car companies. And for Acura, that enduring hit has been the Integra. Despite being introduced way back in 1994, the Integra remains the benchmark for rowdy front-drive sport compacts. But you know, after 8 years, Honda's luxury division was forced to give its entry-level song a complete rewrite. So say goodbye to the Integra and say hello to the more powerful, more refined 2002 Acura RSX.
An interesting introduction. Musicians are looking for a song that is a big hit and lasts through the ages. I think of, he says that, and I think of Mariah Carey's Christmas song, right, that shows up every single year. It's like the most streamed and downloaded and played Christmas song, period, every single year. She makes millions off of it. Acura had a hit. They came out with the Integra, and I've talked a lot about Acura before. And if you've watched anything I've done, you know I'm a Honda fan. And they had a hit in the Integra, and they gave it up. They gave up the name, and they switched to these RSX and TLX and everything else. So you want a hit that endures, and then you are afraid the hit overshadows you. Biggest mistake in the world was them getting rid of the Integra and the Vigor and everything else and going to these three-letter combinations. But let's talk about the styling for a minute. I really like it. I really, really do. To me, this looks, and we'll see it in a minute, I'm sure. To me, it looks like honestly, it looks like a dog that wants to play, right? Looks like it's got its nose down, it's got its tail up in the air. I like the overall style of this. This low nose and this high rear deck. That being said, I don't love the headlights. I don't hate them. I just don't love them. They look a little Asian to me, and the grille is way too small. And when you look at that and you look at the flanks of it, it's a Civic, right? And the Integra was too, but the Integra captured that lightning in a bottle, right? It became special. It became almost, I want to say, the peak of what Honda could do and what made Hondas feel special. This doesn't quite do it. It just looks like a two-door Civic. It just looks like a nicer two-door Civic. And I think I'm going to talk about that some more as they go through it. I think it's very handsome, don't get me wrong. But from a styling perspective, if you're buying this and you want something nicer than a Civic, and you want something that's more powerful, more refined, and more playful, why aren't you looking at BMW, Mercedes, Audi? Where does this fit, other than it's just a nicer Civic?
But can this smoother RSX stay at the top of the charts? Only time will tell, but a look at the 2002 Acura RSX's spec sheet does give us a pretty good idea of what to expect. Built on a modified version of the latest Honda Civic platform, the RSX is 1.2 inches wider and a substantial 3.2 inches taller than the tight-fitting Integra. but all other dimensions are basically the same, including the 101.2-inch wheelbase. Style-wise, the coupe-only RSX is sleeker and less controversial than Integra, with a pronounced Acura look, especially in the CL-style front end with its shield of a grille and arched multi-reflector headlights.
Okay, hold on. The hindsight being 2020, them saying that they like the shield of a grille, we all know that became actually the beak, right? The chrome beak. Acura, for all the world, I would say Acura just needs to fire their stylists and their product people and get people in there who look at what Acura has done since the mid 80s and how their styling has evolved. And they went through just some really dark periods. I really hate the beak on the cars, if you can't tell. I think the new exterior styling looks good. I don't like their interiors. Look at how far Genesis has come, and then look at modern Acuras. And gosh, it just starts to feel like they aren't trying, to be luxury. They're just trying to be nicer. And I would say from certain angles, I've never noticed it before, I'll be darned if this thing doesn't look like a Toyota Paseo from this rear three-quarter view.
The taller roofline drops smoothly to a sharply defined rear deck lid, not unlike the rival Celicas, finishing with multi-lens lamps that echo those on the front. To make sure that the RSX is as fast as it looks, Acura has equipped it with two versions of an all-new 2-liter dual overhead cam 4. The base version puts out 160 horsepower and 141 pound-feet of torque. That's 20 horses and 18 pound-feet more than base Integra power. For the more potent RSX Type S, output rises to an even 200 horsepower and 142 pound-feet of torque. That beats the GSR by 30 horsepower and 14 pound-feet, and the race-inspired Type R by 5 horsepower and 12 pound-feet.
Those are solid numbers. Pretty darn impressive. And they're Honda engines, so I trust them. But those numbers are solid.
Both engines use Acura's new iVTEC intelligent variable valve timing. Valve timing is now continuously variable, working on the intake side of the base engine and all 16 valves on the Type S. Transmission choices for the base RSX are either a standard 5-speed manual or an optional 5-speed automatic with sequential sport shift capability. The Type S gets a short throw, close ratio 6-speed manual. With it, 0 to 60 flashes by in only 6.9 seconds. The quarter mile in 15.4 seconds at 94 miles per hour. That's a hair faster than the race-inspired Integra Type R we tested in '97. Like the new Civic, the RSX dumps double wishbones for a front McPherson strut suspension, a subject of some controversy among the Honda Acura faithful. The rear suspension is a new, more compact double wishbone design, a setup that not only acquitted itself well on our test track, but also on challenging California switchbacks. Put your foot down in the Type S and the first impression is not so much of speed, but of refinement. Where the Integra Type R...
Okay, they're just skipping right along here. Look good. The numbers are solid. They're really good. It's interesting. They said that it was a little bit faster than the 97 Integra, Type R Integra they tested. So in 5 years, Acura made a modest increase, probably due to weight, would be my guess. Complaining about the suspension setup, I honestly think most people don't care. It matters when you get to the limits, right? And I don't think that's the intention of this. Look good through the slalom, but let's hear what they say, that you put your foot down and you don't feel speed, you feel refinement. Okay, refined engine, nice. That lends itself to a more premium feel, but you're buying a more sporty car, you expect some oomph. That's probably because the relatively weak torque numbers this engine had.
Was a raucous, stripped-out street racer, the RSX Type S is smooth, solid, and remarkably quiet. Coming out of a corner, the Type S's 200 horsepower 2-liter winds up fast. But unlike the hottest Integra, power is less peaky up top, far more spread out across the rev band. And while the Acura Hardcore may not like the idea of a strut front suspension, this one really works. The RSX turns in a lightning-quick manner, but with less front plow than the Integra. You can drive with both wheel and throttle, and overall balance rivals better rear-drive cars. It's very impressive. As is the variable torque-sensing power steering, with its high-speed 15.1-to-1 ratio and plenty of feedback. The RSX more refined.
Really complimentary there. You know, I know that Honda went through a transition. They had for a long time these really expensive front suspension setups, which allowed for a super low hood, and they moved away from it. I think part of it was not just cost and complexity, but also unsprung weight. And yeah, I remember articles back in the day of people complaining about Honda cheapening it up, but they still ended up, it still performed well. I don't know. I would love to drive a more modern strut suspensioned Accord and then go back and drive one of those wishbone suspension ones and just feel the difference again. I kind of think the old ones would feel a little more special, right? But very, very high compliments here of what they're giving in terms of how it builds speed. How many times have you heard a review where they said it's quiet about a Honda? Really impressive. I'm going to have some things to say about the interior here.
Fine feel is also reflected in a much more refined and very well-equipped interior, even though the driver-oriented dash has a much more austere look than those of its more Luxo CL and TL siblings. The driver settles into a body-hugging sports seat with side airbags and integrated belts, all covered with leather in the Type S. Squarely in front is a large, racy, white-faced analog gauge package, and to the right is a center dash which houses user-friendly automatic climate controls up top. But we think the standard CD stereo in-CD changer on the Type S should trade places with the climate controls. Still, the Type S's 7-speaker Bose system does sound sweet no matter where it lives, including under the trunk floor where an amplified subwoofer sits in the spare tire. The rear seat is typically couped tight despite the taller roof, but it does offer a standard 50-50 split folding seat back, while the trunk holds a healthy 17.8 cubic feet of cargo space. It's a big step forward for this Integra successor. Of course, all those improvements...
Before they go on to the price, yeah, they kind of fudged the numbers there a little bit, saying that the trunk has 17 point something cubic feet. That was with the seats down. Come on. That's a pretty small trunk. With the seats up, I don't think that if you're buying this car, you're going to be hauling 4 people around in all their luggage up to the mountains for a weekend, right? So, you know, I'd put the seats down and probably leave them down all the time. That's just how I would live. 17's good. You know, it's the size of a good mid-size car. That's big for a mid-size car, let's be fair. But with the seats up, yeah, a couple duffel bags stacked on top of each other, probably. Interior. Let's talk about the interior here. I don't love white face gauges. These do not look cheap, white-faced gauges. They just don't look good to my eyes, and I don't like the brushed aluminum, whatever they're going for here. Gear shifter, I love it. They had a really thin little aluminum bezel around it with leather boot, not a cheap rubber one. That's nice. Leather interior. That's nice. I don't love the knobs up at the top. I know what they were going for. They're for the HVAC. They're going for something that looks a little more upscale than just, you know, having plastic knobs. But to me, they just look... they don't look industrial. They just don't look premium. I do love how the dash is laid out and how you've got that flat piece right there for the HVAC, and then the radio is canted outward like this. Love how it's laid out. But there's nothing here that says I'm a luxury car. I mean, other than leather, right? Yeah.
Will cost you a few dollars more. Base price for the Hartley Basic RSX is $20,430. The exciting Type S starts at $23,650. After 8 years of Integra popularity, the RSX has some very big, very hot shoes to fill. And while it may or may not be a perfect fit with its target market, we have no doubt that Acura's most youthful driving machine has its track shoes laced up tight. They're just a bit more comfortable than before.
Motorweek is made possible by...
Interesting. Very, very interesting. You know, they keep talking about how nice it is, but I think what comes through in that review is there's no passion, right? It builds speed. It handles fine in spite of the change to the suspension. The interior is ergonomically fine, but not as nice as these other cars. It rides good and it's quiet, but yada yada, but a lot of buts in this one, I feel. And the thing is, I've looked at this car a few times, and I like Acuras, I like Hondas, and there's been more than a few times I've looked at this from a value proposition and thought, man, this would be a fun car. And, you know, I don't need a midsize all the time. I don't need to carry other people around. I don't have to carry the kids anywhere anymore. This would be a fun car. And you can find some, or at least you could before the pandemic screwed everything up, you can find deals on these. But the deeper you dig, I think Honda and Acura just missed the boat. They missed some passion. You know, the Integra's hood, the Integra's lines, hatchback, and this being a little more bubulous and curvy, and it just doesn't pull together. I'm not saying it's bad, because I actually really like the car. There's a part of me that thinks it's underappreciated, that it's forgotten, because it's good. But as a whole, it feels, there we go. It feels like less than the sum of its parts. Like every single decision just feels like they missed it. And instead of building another classic, another lightning in the bottle with like the Integra, they just built nice car. And that's what this all comes back to. Like, other than it has a little more space inside and it's quieter, why not get a Civic? If you're going for Acura because it's a little nicer, it's got leather and a high quality dashboard, there's other nicer cars out there. I don't know exactly how much an Infiniti competitor would be at the moment compared to this, but they were nice inside, and I thought their styling was better back then. You still got BMW and Mercedes and Audi out there, and some other options as well. And let's not forget the elephant in the room here, the GTI. I would much rather drive a GTI and have its practicality than this thing. Because this is just a really nice Civic. And so I'm of two very different minds here. I hope that's coming through. On the one hand, there's other cars that are either more luxurious and more expensive, or the GTI with that hatchback that I would much rather drive on a daily basis. And this is just a nice Civic, but it's really cool. And I think this is a car that once you cut through everything I just said, if it was in my driveway, I think I'd be perfectly happy with it. I think that smooth, sweet engine, that 5-speed transmission, little tossability, and a little bit more of a value proposition, and certainly being from a Honda fan point of view, I think this is a car that would be very easy to live with, and very easy to live with for a long time. But if you were there at that moment with that money to spend and you wanted sporty and upscale, I'm not exactly sure this hits the mark. Let me know what you think below, guys. This was a fun one. Appreciate you being here.